couple of weeks ago, I broke down a strategy from the #1 player in wins when it comes to Warzone. And it seemed like a lot of you guys were really interested in that. And you guys requested that I actually review and break down his gameplay. So that's what we're doing today. So we're going to be breaking down 2 different matches from him. One is his 1000th win and the other one his 1001st win, which was basically back-to-back because he wins over 60% of his matches. If you guys are interested in checking him out, I would highly recommend it, which I'm going to link down in the description below for both his YouTube and his Twitch. So make sure you go ahead and let him know I sent you. And if you'd like to see more of this type of content, make sure you hit the like button. I do have a goal in today's video of 1,000 likes. And if you're brand new looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, tips and tricks, that type of stuff, make sure you subscribe with notifications on. So the first thing we're going to look at here in this 1000th win is the mini-map. So the strategy starts right off the bat, and there's a couple different things you're going to see. A lot of times when I was talking about the individual strategy, people think that it's just about getting recons and then positioning in the final circle. It's not necessarily, that's not necessarily the strategy behind that. There's multiple things going on, and it's very nuanced. It's not about just going to the end circle and just camping. That's not the strategy. It's a lot more to it, because if it was just as easy as that, a lot of people would have more wins, whereas It's Iron has over 1,000, and that's not necessarily just playtime because he wins a majority of his matches. So the first thing they're looking for is a cluster of recons and a scab. So they're looking at that area, and then you can see they've already highlighted the helicopter. The helicopter is primarily for the tempo and the speed. And what happens is, I've learned from him, is that I didn't realize it initially, but now I've started to pay attention to it, and it is correct that when you pick up a recon, it has a potential to push to one location or another. It basically has 2 potential spawns. So a lot of times when they're landing on a recons, they've already kind of surveyed these areas multiple times because they have a lot of playtime, and they'll already know to have somebody else positioned in a different location, and they'll be standing there when the recon appears. So it's immediate. They're doing a split spawn. So obviously they got to be capable to handle themselves in a low man situation without their loadouts, and they get their loadouts pretty quickly. So pretty much they're trying to get to these things as pretty much as fast as possible. His teammates grabbing the recon over here. Somebody's in a helicopter over here, and when he's landing in, his teammate's dealing with the helicopter guy. And what you'll notice is his teammate grabbed the recon, and look at where he's standing, literally on the recon. So there's a lot that goes into it. They know exactly where the locations of different things go, because like I said, there's pretty much only 2 locations, and it's a little bit of RNG. It's either that way or that way. Same thing with the scavengers. It's either going to go that way, and then as soon as you grab that one, it's going to go to the next spot or the other spot. And then once you grab that one, it's going to go to the next spot or the next spot. So there's a lot of times there's a little bit of a pattern to it. And the more you progress, or at least you're aware of it, you can at least be a little bit more conscious and pay attention to those things and pay attention to the nuances. So he already knows the recon is here, and that's why he's positioned where he is, and he's split away from his teammate. His teammate's coming back, going to go pick him up, and he's going to jump on the recon. So a lot of it is about tempo and getting the loadout as fast as possible. And another thing that they do, that I do, and a lot of the good players do, is they go ahead and try and get cash as fast as possible. They buy a loadout, and normally that loadout is going to have overkill. You're going to get one primary weapon, which is your rifle, and then your secondary weapon, which is either going to be an SMG or a sniper rifle. That's the typical pattern of most of the top players that play it, regardless if they're going for kills, wins, or whatever the scenario is. And there's a lot of times people in the comment section saying, well, why not just save the money and wait till you get the free loadout and get Ghost or whatever? Why not prioritize Ghost in the first class setup that you buy, and then when the free one comes in, you just get the second weapon? Because what ends up happening is the advantage of having those 2 weapons that specialize in a specific area is going to put you head and shoulders above other players. Right here, you can see when he grabbed the scav, it was either going to go to the fire station or here, and they're relatively close, and they're just kind of banging these out in 2-man split. So it's 2-man here and then 2-man on the other side over by port. So they can go ahead and jump on the next recon. They already kind of have an idea of that. And to build on that concept of having both your primary weapons, for example, if you go with the sniper, odds are not many people are going to have a sniper in your lobby. It's going to be a very small percentage, primarily because they're not getting the loot that quick. So they're not getting that free loadout. And if they're deciding to go that Ghost route, they're going to go with the M4, the Grau, or one of the other rifles that they prefer. And then when they get the free loadout at the end of the first zone, then they're going to go ahead and go for their sniper rifle. So if you get your sniper rifle early, a lot of times you can take engagements where it's almost impossible for the enemy to engage with you, especially if you're able to hit your shots. So that's where a little bit of the skill comes in, because if you're a low skill player, you're probably still going to get run over trying to do this strategy. You're going to have to improve in all different aspects. And you can see how quick they've done this. It's only been like a few minutes into the match. They've already done the recons. They're starting to regroup. And there's a couple different reasons that they're doing these recons back to back to back to back. Obviously, it gives you intel on the zone. And they already know at the zone that it is right here, once they get the next recon, that they're already going to win the match. That's pretty much how much they understand these zones, that literally based off of a specific zone, they're already going to win the match. Like 90% plus, they're going to win the match. And some other ones, they know, okay, this one's going to be a little more contested. So it just really depends. He's gone on like 25 win streaks or something crazy, and had like 40 wins in one stream, which is absolutely ridiculous, where they only lost like 3 times out of like 43 matches. So that is just crazy how effective the strategy is, but it's through trial and error that they've learned. Because what will end up happening is the zone collapses, and what you'll notice is as the zone collapses and you're seeing that final zone, what ends up happening is there might be like 3 or 4 different positions in there and different areas of land. And what will happen is when you're first learning to do this, you try one out and then it works. So you continue using that same spot. But if it doesn't work, then you try a different location, because you play enough. These zones are pretty predictable at a certain point where you know, okay, we've had this one before. We've had this one before. Let's go ahead and just repeat what we're doing. And then you just go to a different location, and you kind of figure out which one works best. So when it comes up again, you just repeat it. And if it's not broken, no need to change it up or try and fix it anyway. So that's one part, the intel. The other part is sometimes things don't work out according to plan. Obviously, it's going to look all smooth when they're doing it right here. But sometimes the entire squad wipes, as we're going to see in the second gameplay that I'm chopping down a little bit. But we'll see in the second gameplay where they transition and a lot of them get downed and they get wiped. But since they've done so many recons, they've done that bonus stacks up. So if one person comes up and get a scab, they could literally buy the entire team with one scab. If they do one bounty, they're getting like 9,000 a person, which stacks up pretty quick. So everyone can get their self revives. If you need a loadout, you can afford it. If you need plates, if you need a gas mask, you need streaks, you need munitions, everything, it's pretty much stacked. So this one, he was pretty excited because he already kind of knew that they were going to win. Once they got the stadium rotation, they already know how it rotates out of downtown and different parts of the map. They already kind of know, okay, this is where we position ourselves. Once it gets to this part, we're already set up for it. They've been through it and they've done it multiple times. So it works out really well that way. And here's an example. We're having the loadout early. So you can see they have it a minute early. Somebody just bought their loadout, and there's still about a minute and 15 before the free loadout drops in. So what we're going to notice is as they push up, he has a sniper rifle, which if he decided to go with Ghost, he wouldn't have had the sniper rifle. He probably would have just had his primary rifle, which could still be usable. But this is a perfect example of what I was talking about for the situation. So he sees the guy just sitting right here, and he has other teammates that are sniping as well. And at this range, pretty much no one on the enemy team is going to be able to shoot back unless they get a chance to grab their loadout. Obviously, it could have been better if they were there just a little bit sooner, but they end up pretty much wiping out the team because they're just team sniping and taking everyone out while they're out there by the loadout. Then they're going to go ahead and clean up, kill everyone. Those guys have plates, money, all that, and it continues to stack. You can see right now they have 3,000 a person. And once they do this recon, it's going to bump up an extra 2,500 a person. So they're all going to be sitting at almost close to 6,000. You do one scab, and then everyone's sitting at 10,000. Real easy. They load up on the right streaks. They don't always necessarily go with UAVs because those can be a waste. So there's a lot of different nuances of what they're doing and why it pays off. And what will end up happening is there's sometimes people, they'll see the one kill and they'll go, man, isn't that kind of boring? But what ends up happening is sometimes these things are contested. So they end up with like 7 kills right now. And then the end zone, they get like another 7 kills. So he ends up with like 15. Sometimes he ends up with 18. Sometimes he ends up with just 1 at the end. It doesn't really matter because he's going for wins, and being number 1 in the world requires you to win games very often because there's other people trying to chase that goal as well and trying to be number 1. So his entire goal is to just be number 1 in wins and stay number 1 in wins. Whereas other people, they're trying to just go high kill games, and then they end up losing 5th place with like 50 kills to somebody who had like 7 kills because they positioned themselves the right way and were playing for the win. Yes. And that's not to say that he couldn't go for high kill games. It's just different priorities, because I've seen him turn it on when I've watched his streams. Literally, he's like, all right, cool, let's try and go for kills, change up the strategies, practice it up. especially after he hit 1,000 wins. Now he's kind of gone a little bit more aggressive in some of the games, so he can go for a little bit higher games. It just kind of depends on where the zone ends up going. So you can see right here, then I go for the scab, and I'm going to skip late zone. They end up on stadium.
Did you have the ammo?
And pretty much what ends up happening is they're in a safe spot, because if they get sniped, then they just back up and their teammate revives them. And they just continue this process. Sometimes if they're not even getting hit, they're not going to replate, because if they get down, they just get revived, down, revive, and they just be playing the game. And usually a person down below has no option other than to plate, because they're down low and they can be shot by somebody else, and then they can get thirsted. Whereas in the position they're at, they make it to the late game and they're going to have a numbers advantage. Often it's going to be a 3 versus 1, a 4 versus 1, and it ends up being where pretty much the enemy team had no shot. And it's because of these little nuances of the strategy and learning how to work the area that it works out and pays off. So with this particular zone, he knows that, all right, as soon as it closed on downtown, literally I cannot get shot from this side. Pretty much you're only going to be able to shot from below you, so you're not going to end up getting killed. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into this. And then also, depending on where the zone's going, he might have gone with an SMG instead of a sniper rifle, knowing that they were going to go on top of stadium. Sniper rifle makes the most sense. Otherwise, he'd just be kind of standing up here, marking targets, but not necessarily able to shoot them without wasting a ton of ammo. And then the other part of kind of positioning yourself up on top like this is you're getting a good vantage point of where all the different players are, whether they're below you, to the side, where you kind of gate kept them as they came in. They have to rotate, so they're going to be caught running. If they get down, they kind of get really in a bad position. So that's the advantage in this strategy. You just kind of work smarter, not harder, for those wins. Whereas some people will play the hard route. They get 22 kills and then end up dying to some random camping in a corner. This isn't necessarily a strategy, because they're still aggressively, actively seeking those engagements that they know they're going to win. So you can see both of his teammates got downed. They couldn't get thirsted because they backed up. They're going to go ahead and get tapped in. They have the self-revive so they can save time on the revive. As soon as they come in, you can just tap it, because they've already done like 90% of their revive bar. So that's pretty much how this one plays out. And the key is they're already aware of how this situation plays out. Most people when they camp stadium, they're not usually prepared for what happens once they need to jump off. They purposely aren't using UAVs because it doesn't matter. They know where people are. They don't necessarily have to call in a UAV. A lot of people are going to run ghosts anyways. So they're using their situational awareness the same way you would use in other battle royales that do not have the UAV present. And what's going to end up happening is they rock the cluster strike, the precision airstrike, and they're going to use that for mobility, which is kind of unorthodox for most people. So what ends up happening is they've kind of scouted the area. Obviously, someone could be in like some weird random like nook somewhere hiding, but odds are they're below them. Pretty much everyone that's left is going to be below them. There are 2 teams left in addition to their squad. So it's just 2 teams, and they're thinking they're below on this right side and below on the left side. So that's kind of where those 2 locations are going to be. And what they're going to use is the cluster. They're going to go ahead and call in the cluster, and then they're going to jump off, and they're going to use that tactically the same way you'd use like a smoke or something like that. And that'll allow them to go ahead and jump off without getting shot, because when you put a cluster down, people start running around instead of looking up. Whereas if you didn't cluster, people are already looking up because that's where they expect you to be. And then pretty much they just shoot you out of the sky. Look at, not one person fires. He calls in the cluster. He tells them where to place it. They jump off, and they can get out to cover where they know they've already cleared it and it should be safe. So they get out there, and then you can see people are trying to shoot right there. His teammate might have got shot at, but pretty much nothing there. And then the guy still stays up top so he can give some more intel, and they don't really know about him, because if they did see them jump off, then they know, okay, there's only 2 right there. So that's pretty much what you have to do. You can see that there is one team over here on the left side, and then there's a team on the right. So they kind of are pushing together, fighting, and pretty much they end up winning the match. The guy pretty much stayed up top. He's going to jump down now. You can see he's gliding down. They can't even fire at him because the teammates are providing cover. And it just works out to be a very smooth map. It could have gone south right here, but they do have the high ground. They have positioning, cover, able to take that guy down, and then that ends up being this match. That went pretty smoothly. They end up losing 1 guy, so nothing crazy. They had 26 kills combined. So right here on the leaderboard, you can see 1,000 wins, and he's 187 wins ahead of the next player which is Scopes, and then ahead, he's like 250 wins ahead of that guy. So there is a huge gap right there in terms of win, and that has to go back to this individual strategy where they've kind of fine-tuned it. And he's kind of talked about it on stream, where initially at the beginning of the game, they kind of had like a 20 or 30% ratio as far as winning. But as the months, the 2 months have gone on, pretty much it's gone from 30% to 40 to 50 to 60, and they're gonna eventually get to 70% win rate, and primarily because that's through the trial and error, because they're still learning. There's some examples that are a little bit more rare. So this is what we're gonna see. We're gonna see this strategy played out again. They got money. They've already done the recons. They've done a scav, and they're all sitting on over $10,000 with. The first circle is barely starting to close, so they still got a lot of time. They know where the final zone is. They kind of marked where ideally they want to position themselves, and then after they got in their loadouts, all that type of stuff, they're still trying to get a little bit more money together so they can have their streaks, their ammo box, their armor plate box. So pretty much they're stacked, good to go, and they're prepared for any situation. So he ends up dying here, wins his gulag, but because they had so much money, literally it's like nothing happened. He comes in, teammates cover him as he comes to the loadout, and then they slowly make their way. So it doesn't always work out perfectly. So a lot of times people think, oh, you just do a recon, you go camp. Well, no, they're going to go ahead and transition that way. And on the way over there, they're able to get bounties. When they get these bounties, the bounties add up to a ton of cash, like 8,000 a person. So pretty much they end up stacked, and then they can position themselves. Since they've already kind of gone through these scenarios, they know that these people over here at the blue are going to continue to hold that area, and they understand the weaknesses and strengths of that individual area and how to position themselves and how to rotate. So what you're going to notice a lot of times when they play, it's through that trial and error and through experience that they're learning exactly what they need to do. So right here, 8,500 for this bounty. The guy ends up he catches him as he runs across. He downs him, tries to thirst him a little bit, and then the teammate ends up thirsting, and then they all end up with that money so they can get their self revived. So easy little bounty there, 17, 20, that's 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 in cash, which is very disposable. And then you maybe use some UAVs for awareness. So what ends up happening is they know that this area is the power position to gatekeep. So in Boneyard, these two buildings are a little bit taller. They have roofs. They have a little bit of stairway getting up. If you position two teammates on each side, you're going to be in a pretty good power position, especially since the edge of the zone is here. You should be able to gatekeep a lot of players, and that's what they end up doing. They pretty much do the same thing that they would have done, but they also got to be aware of the people at blue, because the people from blue actually have a good sight line to them. So it's just always being aware of your surroundings and understanding how you need to rotate, and that the open side on the left here is once they've gatekeeped all these players coming in, all the players that are trying to get in right here, they can see that they have the UAV, and then they're going to rotate on the soft side where they know that it's a little bit more open. There's a little bit of hills and cover, so they can position themselves and work their way up, and then not necessarily take on the people that have the power position. And the power position people in the blue building that they marked should have done their best job to take these guys out while they had the power position, because once you need to rotate, then you're not in that power position. So you got to take advantage of the opportunities when your opponents present a weakness, which obviously this is a case where the opponents are coming in and they're going to go ahead and kind of gatekeep them, take them out, have the numbers advantage, and pretty much have everyone going into the end of the match. So look, they're going to call in the cluster on that roof because they know that those guys need to rotate out. By putting a cluster, it forces them to move away from that area, so that protect this rotation. So they only got to worry about one team, and a lot of times when they get in these engagements, they're in and out. And that's the difference between a lot of good players and players that are a little bit average or below average. They take too long to close out an engagement. The longer you're in an engagement, the higher likelihood of you getting third-partied, because people are going to hear those gunshots, and then they're going to roll up, and they're going to see you where you're at because they can hear it, directional audio, and they're going to take you out because they're going to be in a position where they can. So closing out enemies really quickly is a huge advantage that typically top players take advantage of. So that's pretty much how this match ends up going. This ended up being the 1,001st win, and these were back-to-back. You ended up getting basically 3 wins in a row, where that's kind of just how it goes. So if you want to learn more from him, pick his brain about his class setups, about strategy, maybe the different nuances that maybe I didn't get a chance to explain in the video, I highly recommend going to check out It's Iron on both YouTube, Twitch, check out his Twitter. follow him, let him know I sent you. But the thing that I like most about It's Iron is even though he's a really good player, top tier, pretty much all of his strategies can be replicated by anyone watching this video. It's not like you have to have the god tier aim like Swag or one of those other top YouTubers. These strategies, tried and true, and regardless if you're a below average player or average player, you should be able to get a lot more wins by trying to do this strategy and really thinking about how your positioning plays a role within the match. Hopefully you guys did enjoy it. If you did, hit the like button. And if you're brand new or looking to find your way back for whatever reason, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.